I think as a black woman, you have to constantly keep your options open. If it's something you really want in life, a career, love, a home, and you experience more peace, etc., stay open to the many ways you can obtain that thing. Don't ever limit your paths. Ever. And that was posted on Instagram by Kea Nova. I love that name. What a beautiful name. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Toy Talks podcast. My name is Toya Washington, and for those of you who do not know me, where have you been? What have you been doing? I bi-weekly and some post a new episode, and we talk about careers, and I teach, guide and educate black women how to navigate the world of work safely, in turn highlighting the path of our success. And in doing so, I share my experiences. I have been working since the age of 15. I am now 39 years old, and I recently celebrated my 39th birthday, and I'm looking like a baby girl. Yeah, I'm looking cute, man. Listen, I see dimples more than I see wrinkles. Did you hear me? I see dimples more than I see wrinkles. Hey, look at me, just one little lyricist like that. But no, seriously, I have created this platform for black women, to black women, about black women. I choose black women first because I am a black woman. I choose black men thereafter, and then everyone else. This podcast, you know, at the end of the day, is on all podcast platform streams. But I always, you know, for me, share my experience as a black woman in the world of work, because it's a lot. And I definitely feel after every role, one needs to just tap into therapy. Seriously, even if it's just to check in and make sure that you're okay. I feel like after every role, it should be something that we all do. Like, just take 10% of your money, put it to one side and do it. Especially when there is triggered trauma or there are established traumas from workplaces. I definitely see the benefit in going into therapy, because a lot of us are basically working through work traumas in new roles from previous roles. And I've said that before. So, yeah, that's what we do here. And of course, to complement the podcast episodes and the podcast in its entirety, I have a website, www.toyatalks.com. And there we have masterclasses, and those masterclasses range from the CV masterclass, interview masterclass, passing your probation masterclass, the redundancy masterclass. We have another masterclass that deals with freelancing, interim and contracting, if that's something that you're interested in or something that you're doing or want to do. I've got a masterclass on that. I've got the maternity masterclass. We have a catalogue of masterclasses, and we'll be adding more in the future. And those masterclasses basically give you in-depth into the subject matter at hand. And I teach and I guide in those masterclasses. I give templates out in those masterclasses. And also as well, I have an opportunity where I can dissect certain issues and go into detail. All I ask is that you have an open mind, a pad and a pen. That is it for those masterclasses. So if you are interested, go ahead to www.toytalks.com. Before we get into this episode, which is a dilemma episode, actually, I also want to just highlight something that I don't know if people are aware. There is Karen Brady's Women in Business and Tech, and it's at the Excel Centre between the 18th and the 19th of October. And it's a 2-day event. Obviously, you don't have to come for the 2 days, but I'm just saying. And it's not really being heavily advertised anywhere. I saw this on the way to the Tate Modern when me and my husband were taking my daughter to see something. She's 5 months old, by the way, but we are really like into the arts and into like expression and sensory stuff. So we took her, and as I was on the train, I was actually on the Thames Link, and I saw it advertised on there, and I took a screenshot really quickly, and I was like, do you know what? I might go to this. So I am sharing that with all of you guys. If you are into tech, if you're a woman in business, and business doesn't necessarily mean entrepreneurial business. I've always said to you all, see yourself as a business. See yourself, even if you're not interested in external business and all you want to do is be successful in your career, you are still a business. You are still a product. You are still providing a service. You are a subject matter expert. You are a woman in business. Tech is developing every day, and we know AI and how technology is transforming the way we do work. So I definitely think Karen Brady's Women in Business and Tech between the 18th and 19th of October at the Excel Centre is something worth looking at. And even if you can't go, at least you can sign up for next year. I really like Karen Brady, by the way. I'm a huge fan of her. And I'm a huge fan of her because she's a woman's woman. I like her. And she's cutthroat in a way that I feel like she needs to be for where she is in her life and for what she's experienced in her life. There was an episode with Steve Bartlett and Karen Brady, and it's probably one of my favourite episodes because I am enamoured by her. Enamoured in a sense that I love the fact that she has been able, and don't get me wrong, I definitely think there's white privilege there. That's just part and parcel, I feel like, as being as a white woman. There is a level of privilege. There is, because you're not having to think the way we as black women have to think in order for us to be able to enter that room. Whereas for white women, they know that they can at least put their hand on the handle to open the door. Us, we feel like we have to hesitate a little bit. So we know what we're talking about here, right? Okay, cool. Oh, can you imagine if I had Karen Brady on this podcast? Can you imagine that type of interview? Yeah. Karen Brady, if there's anyone connected to Karen Brady, can you tell her about me? Can you tell her about the podcast? Can you tell her about the platform? Maybe I will see her there and I give her a business card. Maybe her PA is there. Listen, I would love to get her on here. Because I think also there is an education piece as well, from us to her and from her to us. I definitely think so. Listen, I'm telling you that a lot of the doors that have been opened for me in my career has been opened by white women. And they have been wokely conscious white women. Those are the ones that made open the door. I'm going to be honest. And it's not because black women won't open the door. It's sometimes black women aren't standing on the other side of that door to open. That's the truth. How many black female CEOs do you know? How many black female directors do you know? Of some of these big multinational... How many do you know? So how can I expect them to open the door for me, or at least tell me there's a door to be opened, if they're not sitting behind that door? So a lot of white women have been the ones that have opened the door for me and created opportunities, and also shared with me how to use strategic ways of getting through. And some of the strategies haven't been in consideration of me being a black woman, so I've then had to adopt what they've said, but adapt it so that I'm able to strategically get what I want. So Karen Brady is like, I'm a fan of Karen Brady, and it's not very often I say I'm a fan. Also as well, I want to something was brought to my attention, and I'm actually going to email the person directly. And again, I just want to thank you guys. You guys have my back when it comes to the podcast and platform. And I'd like to believe that it's because you guys have really seen the value of what I've been able to give to our community. And you see that I'm genuine, you see that I'm honest, and you have my back. Apparently, my podcast platform has been running adverts, and I've said it from the beginning, like, my platform is fully funded by me. Everything you see is fully funded. I don't have no sponsor. I don't have no loans. I don't have anything. I do everything. I taught myself how to edit. I do it all. Okay. So when if on the show notes I haven't written ad or sponsor, then it shouldn't have any ads or any sponsor. And also, I put them on the show notes. I'm honest. I think I've only had one sponsor, and that's because there was synergy. And I'm very, very fussy about who I collaborate with, because number one, do you center black women? Number two, how do you center those black women? Number three, are you trying to use me as a token? How does it benefit my community? Number four, you better be paying. In that order. So somebody brought to my attention that my platform had been running ads. So my host, has been running ads, and I have spoken to them about it, and they've removed those ads. So any sponsor you should hear should be noted in the show notes. And a labourer is worth their wage. So if there is a sponsorship, yeah, you're paying. I also want to take this. So I'm going to reach out to that person that shared that with me. Thank you so much. Please look in your emails, because you'll receive an email from me. Also as well, I just want to point out as well that I've had a lot of companies reach out to me to collaborate. I've received a lot of correspondence from PR companies, and I just want to say this: there has to be synergy between the ethos of the Toy Talks podcast and platform and the collaborator. And number two, if you are a PR company and asking me if I could invite or would have on my podcast, there has to be synergy. And I'm going to be very, very clear to you again. This podcast is 2 black women, 4 black women, about black women. I choose black women first, then black men, then everyone else. So with that being known, you have to really, as a PR company, do the work. Yeah, I can tell when a PR company just writes to me just because my podcast is charted, and then you have a client that is publishing a book and needs to. No, that's not what we're doing here. How does your client and what they do benefit my community positively and will benefit henceforth? How does their knowledge, their work, feed into what I do here on the podcast that will I can't speak, that will eventually evidence itself as success for black women in my community? And I'm really clear about it, and that's why I fully funded my whole platform, because unless I understand how we can work together for the benefit of my community, I won't work with you. Because for far too long, black women have been overlooked, undervalued, underrated, dismissed, discriminated against, mistreated, and we're not doing that anymore. We're not tolerating it, we're not accepting it, we're being strategic, we're navigating, we're attaining success, because success is due to us too. Simple as that. So, I receive dilemmas all the time. And there's some dilemmas where, in order to protect your anonymity, I can't actually discuss because the fundamentals of your dilemma would reveal who you are. And there's other dilemmas that, of course, I just have to make sure that I've asked you various questions to enable me to advise you, but also that that I do my best to answer these dilemmas in the best way I can, because I take it seriously. You come to me with a dilemma, protect your anonymity, but more importantly, I want to think and hope that I'm able to deliver a really balanced view and give you the advice that I think that, number one, will benefit you, but number two, benefit other people that listen here on the podcast. So we have two dilemmas. So I will read the first one. This dilemma is entitled Missed Payment. Hi, thank you so much for your response. I don't really contact people on TikTok, but the situation I'm in made me remember the work you do, and I just need some advice on what to do. So this lady basically reached out to me on TikTok, and she said she had she needed some advice. I said, listen, I do dilemma episodes on my podcast. Here's my email address, hello@toytalks.com. Send me your dilemma and I'll do my best to answer it. So that's exactly what she did. So I recently started a new job on September the 1st, and she tells me what the job is, and she works in a school. I'm currently on probation. Everything was going great. I had just finished some first aid training. They asked me to go on and do very intense, and I supported them during open evenings. Now, the reason why I'm contacting you is because, unfortunately for me, I wasn't able to be paid on my payday, which was yesterday. I'm behind on some of my bills, and this has really taken a toll on me. The reason is on their part that they changed to a new system, and my account details were not updated on that new system. I was never told about this until yesterday when I was in my training course and was preparing for an assessment. They asked me to try and fill it out by 11 a.m. That was at 10:30 a.m. in the middle of my training. Unfortunately, it didn't work and I didn't have enough time. The HR manager said they are trying to sort, but honestly, this has really messed with my mental health. I have bills I need to pay off, and during my probation, it's not making me feel comfortable and at ease in this company or school. There have been other things that have also hindered my experience. So my question is, should I give them the grace and continue, or should I start looking for something else? Thanks again. So the first thing I did is I went back to her and I said, can you tell me if this is in the UK? As it will guide me on how I view your issue and how I advise you. And she said, hi, yes, this is in the UK. The reason I asked her if it was in the UK is because I couldn't believe that in this day and age, in a cost of living crisis, in a society whereby you work and you get paid, that an organisation is changing HR systems. So I have worked in an organisation contracting where an organisation, a multinational organisation, has changed its HR payroll system. And what happens is it's project managed. Yeah, a proper organisation will have it project managed. You have somebody that does the commercial contracts, so someone like myself. You have a project manager that deals with the implementation, and then you have and also deals with HR, and HR is our key stakeholder because ultimately it's the HR director that's probably the project sponsor for it, and then you have the external company who is leaving and then the new company that's coming in with their new system. So this, something like this, it's a project, and because you're dealing with people's payroll, it's not a project that's done in a day. This can usually take a year or two. But what is known and what is accepted is the risks. So one of the risks is somebody may not be paid, but that should never be the employee's issue. How you pay them is not their business. It's the fact that you pay them. That's what they signed up to. That's their contract. So I wrote back to her, and I will read what I wrote. Hi, I have read what you have sent, and the answer is no. You cannot give them grace. Non-payment of salary is illegal and is an unlawful deduction of wages. Your employment contract should be very clear on when you should be paid. If they had issues with their payment system, this is their problem and not yours. They should have issued an emergency backs transfer, which they can do. Besides the fact that you have an employment contract, you have bills to pay, and this could affect your credit if your bills are paid late. In fact, this has directly affected you. I suggest you send them an email copying in HR payroll and your line manager. I'm happy to draft an email for you to forward to them, but it will be a strongly worded email with a deadline for payment and clear consequences if the deadline is not met. I have to be honest with you. If this was me, I would not be going into work or doing anything until my salary is paid. And they confirmed in an email that such an incident would not occur again. How exactly should you be affording to continue to pay for your transport to get to work if you have not been paid? You have not been paid, and this constitutes a breach of contract. The domino effect is that you can't pay your bills. This is unacceptable, especially in a cost of living crisis where people are struggling. Are you happy for me to draft an email for you to send to them? So what I'm going to do now is read you the email that I sent to her, and then we're going to talk in a bit of detail about this dilemma. So this is the email I drafted, and I told her to send it to the employer. Dear HR payroll, and I said to her that, you CC anyone else that you think this email is pertinent to. Following non-payment of my salary and no notice in advance of non-payment, I've had to seek external advice. Now, the reason I've said that is that external advice is me, isn't it? But they don't know that. The assumption is that external advice is legal, and that's great. That's what you want them to think, because you want them to understand that that they know, that you know what they've done is illegal. And if you were to go to an employment tribunal, it's strict liability. You don't have to wait. You can just apply there and you'll get a date. They'll have to pay for any time spent doing the application. You can ask for damages. This is serious. You can't just not pay people. In England, non-payment of my salary is an unlawful deduction of wages and a breach of my employment contract. Whilst you have now advised me of the payroll issues, there have been no attempts by you, my employer, to mitigate the impact. For example, issue an emergency immediate payment via backs transfer. Instead, and I wrote XX because I don't know how many days has passed, including a weekend, and this has left me unable to pay my bills. As my employer, you have failed in your duty of care towards me, and I've been left financially impacted by the non-payment of September 2023 salary. If payment is not made of my salary in full by Tuesday the 3rd of October 2023 midday, I will have no choice but to issue a claim to the Employment Tribunal for unlawful deduction of wages. In addition, if payment is not made, I will also not be attending work, as I cannot continue to be out of pocket but paying transportation costs to get into work. I will also therefore be seeking damages from the Employment Tribunal. Please be advised that this letter is notice of my intention to take this matter to Employment Tribunal. Kind regards. There should never be a situation where your employer doesn't pay you. Now, when you are transferring HR payroll systems, it's an accepted risk that somebody may slip through the cracks, there may be a mistake, but organisations can do a back transfer. And it's an immediate transfer of funds because they would have processed the payroll, so they know how much you're due, and then they can just journal it across in the back end. How they do that is not your business. The point is they have money at their disposal to pay you for their mistake. The fact that this organisation, and I'm angry, would allow a weekend to pass is wild. It is wild. And why they think it's acceptable is listen, I've worked in places before where they've changed payroll system and there's people slipped into the cracks. You see my white colleagues, even the men, they start crying. The back transfer is made that minute. But when it comes to black women, we are still feeling duty to people who have failed in their duty to us. What is it about us black women that feel like suffering is part and parcel of our existence? No, it is not. And this is the reason why I drafted this for this young lady, because I was feeling it in my gut. When I read that email that she had sent to me, it was weighing on me because I could feel the distress in that. That was a distress call. And I was like, no, we're not doing that. I had to ask if it's in the UK because listen, it's not often I hear it. If I do, it's usually US. And then I'll tell them how to deal with it in the US. But in the UK, the fact that let a weekend, no. You can't come to me at 10:30 and tell me, listen, we may not be able to pay you. Yeah? You didn't call me, you've contacted me, tell me that I need to come back to you within 30 minutes. But you've known this for more than 30 seconds. That this is going, you're mad. You're actually mad. And the fact that you think that I would still be coming into work as an organisation, you're mad. I would just down tools because at that point you're in breach of contract. So if my response is to down tools, I've not breached the contract. I've responded to your breach. Do you understand? Now this lady said, should she look for another role? And this is what I'm going to say to you. You need to be open-minded to other roles because of other issues that you're experiencing, encountering in this job, which you have disclosed, and I haven't disclosed here. But I'm going to say this to you. Any organisation that feels comfortable to change payroll system, not pay you, tell you 30 minutes before that they need a particular document, allow a weekend to pass, and not try to find a resolution is not the type of employer I want to work for. Every employer owes you a duty of care. That duty of care extends to your mental health. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? A labourer is worth their wage. This is not slave labour. This is not what we're doing here. So in you sending that email to them, it will set the cats amongst the pigeons. But as far as I'm concerned, you see, people don't see what they do to you. They see your response. So they'll see this. They'll be like, oh my God, this is a bit, this is a bit serious. But you don't think it's serious that someone can't pay their bills. If you can't pay your bills on time, it affects your credit score. In fact, this young lady, I'm telling you, you need to tell them that verbally. You need to tell them, put it in writing, say it to them. The email, so when you send the email attachment, in the body of the email, you need to say it there. It affects your credit. You not being able to pay your bills affects your mental health because you don't know when you're going to be able to pay those bills. So you can't even tell them, tell like your service provider, your rent, your mortgage. You can't tell them when to expect the money because you don't know. Also as well, we're living in a cost of living crisis. You understand? Bills have to be paid. I still remember when I was single, living on my own or whatever, and I was solely responsible for funding myself. So if I wasn't getting paid, how am I putting money on my electric? How are we doing all that? But then you still expect me to get on the transport to come to work. It's very wild. So let me get this right. You haven't paid me, but I should still come into work. So I should still go and gather money from somewhere to pay for the transport. You're mad. You're actually crazy. And the answer is absolutely no. You see, if we start responding in a way that, i.e., you haven't paid me, I down tools. If you started responding to, you'd get a reaction from these people. When you start saying you have sought external advice, she didn't say legal advice, but it creates an environment with them where they know that you mean business. They're doing this to you in this punitive way. It's punitive. The way they're doing it is with force. It's with aggression. It's actually, what they're doing is actually aggressively violent. Because they're cutting your monetary supply. That's aggressive to me. And they're doing it in a way that you should just deal with it. You're not a CEO. You're not a shareholder. You are an employee who needs to get paid for the job that they do. And it's contractualized. It's just because I didn't want to go too far. Otherwise, I would have really given it to them hell. But their response will determine how you respond. So I said to this young lady, you need to keep me updated and tell me how this goes. If you need any further assistance, let me know. Because you see, one thing I can't stand. I can't stand when they take the piss out of us. And they do it, and then when you respond, they seem shocked, but they're not shocked at the fact that they've cut your monetary supply source. That's wild. But the person who sent you that email got paid. Because I'm telling you, if they didn't get paid, they wouldn't be sending you an email saying that you're not going to be paid. I'm telling you, the person that sent you that email send you that document to fill out and give you 30 minutes. That person got paid. This is why I say HR ain't shit. HR ain't shit. Even if they paid you a day late, but in that day, they managed to do the back transfer, but it won't appear in your account till the next day. And they explain to you, we've traded it. I can understand that. I can try and stomach it because at least they've mitigated the risk by acting swiftly. You're now having to tell them what to do to rectify the situation in the short term. That's wild. I'm letting everybody know that listen to this podcast. If your organisation fails to pay you, tap me in, because we're not having that. That is. Do you know how mad? Listen, let me tell you. Even as a contractor, in my contract, I have it in my contract. It's not pay and be paid. Even if your client doesn't pay you, you're paying me. I negotiate into my contract. Do you understand? Talk less of you now telling me, oh, we're having payroll system issues. That doesn't seem like it's a problem for me. I worked, honey. I did what I did. My bank details did not change. That is not... You see, I hate when organisations try to make their projects your problem. No. That sounds like a you problem. It becomes an us problem because you haven't done the you. That's wild. So I drafted that, sent it to the young lady. I haven't heard from her. If you're listening to this podcast episode, please let me know what's happened, how it rectified itself, the response that you got to the email that I drafted. I want to know. We like follow up here as well. And also, we have a platform where people learn. So let me know. Okay, we have another dilemma. Okay. So, hi. It's not entitled anything. Please, oh God, sorry. No. That was my response. Okay. Hi, Twitter. So this dilemma is actually called Contracting Dilemma. So it has been named. Hi, Twitter. I am a fairly recent listener within the last 3 to 6 months. I've been going back and listening to old episodes as well as help me navigate in the world of work. I am not new in my field, but I am new to contracting. For a bit of background, I work in the education space. Last year, I served on the school leadership team and left that toxic work environment in hopes that contracting would be better. However, it is not. I joined this organisation in July of this year and we were engaging in online training for 2 months. I began my role on site 2 weeks ago. One of the schools who I was supporting complained about me to the superintendent and said they felt I was not a good fit for them. I honestly agree. The people were disgusting in behaviour. The night that I went in for our initial visit, I received a text from the program manager stating that I would not need to go into schools for the next 3 business days. I later received an email for an impromptu meeting with the program manager, her boss, and her boss's boss. I recorded the meeting because I live in a one-party consent state. I was gaslit and told that it is my job to deal with their disrespect. This was said in the meeting. I sent my own follow-up email after the meeting before they could put their own spin on anything. I was also told that my pay would be altered because I am now at home and not on the field. Ultimately, there were too many cooks in the kitchen and now I'm being placed on performance plan as a contractor. While this is my 3rd month on the job, it is only my 3rd week doing the job itself. I did not receive adequate training. I know more details may be needed, but the email is already long enough. My question is, what should I do next? I'm already looking for new roles, but as far as safeguarding myself, is there anything I should say or do? Thank you for everything you do for Black women. I look forward to hearing from you at your earliest convenience. Have a great day. So I went back to her. So I'm going to give you my view, but I went back to her and I said, hi, and I said her name. Please, can you confirm if you are inside or outside IR35? Are you contracting in the UK? Now, the reason I said that to her is she used words like superintendent. It's not specifically words that we would use here in the UK. And I needed to understand if it's in or outside IR35. But if it's outside the UK, that would be irrelevant. So I need to understand that. And I said, you are not an employee of theirs. Therefore, performance reviews do not apply to you. And therefore, you should not accept this. You are a contractor. No contractor should expect to receive training. The reason why contractors are sought is usually because the key skills required is not already within the business. Therefore, they need someone external who can come in and deliver. With regards to safeguarding yourself, especially for future roles. I have a contracting and freelance masterclass where I cover this as a topic. I discuss also how to manage a contract and deliver, available on the toytalks.com website. Once you come back answering the above questions, I can advise you on what I think you should do. So I haven't heard back from her to that email, but I'm going to say a couple of things. Firstly, you're a contractor, and in my contracting and freelance interim masterclass, I talk about there's a segment there where I talk about the contractor mindset. And the reason I speak about that and I dedicate a couple of minutes to that in a masterclass is because there comes a point in contracting, especially in the beginning, where you have to kind of recondition your mind from being a perm. So all things like this displaced loyalty, this feeling the need to, all of this needs to be reconditioned, because as a contractor, you are basically contracting your services through whatever mechanism you're doing it to deliver and get out. All the politics in between is irrelevant. Now, whether you are a contractor in the UK, in the US, in Australia, in Japan, in Africa, in any country in Africa, I'm telling you that the contractor mindset applies. That's the first thing. Secondly, one thing you're not going to ever do in life is place me, a contractor, on a performance review. You need to kiss ass. Not going to happen. If you're not happy with my service that I'm delivering to you, then tell me, let's mutually terminate and I leave. I think it's really disgusting, and it's used to disgrace contractors by putting on performance review. Are you a perm or are you a contractor? You're a contractor. So permanent people are placed on performance review. And even then, I advise people how to manage that. Number one, so it doesn't happen, or number two, if it's happened, how to manage it. I feel like they placed you on performance management to humiliate you. Because that could be the only reason, because they know that you're a contractor. So they know that there's certain perm things that they could do that wouldn't apply to you. You're not an employee. That's the first thing. Secondly, I'm going to also say this. When you are, and I said this in my response to you, when you're hired as a contractor, it's because you're a subject matter expert and you have the key skills that they don't already have in their organization. So please don't, and anyone, expect training. You're not going to get training. That's not how it works. They ask you to have already been trained to bring you in. So your expectation of training is displaced. That's the first thing I'm going to say. Now, in the contracting interim masterclass that I have on the toytalks.com website, I actually speak about how to manage your contract that you've been contracted to do. So how to manage your the client's expectations, whether you're inside or outside IR35, whether you're in the UK or not. It will apply to you. So how do you actually go about delivering? How do you do it? And sometimes when you're delivering, you're having to depend on other people, external factors. You need to be able to know how to ensure that the end client is aware of that by how you manage the delivery of that contract. And I'm talking about auditing. I'm talking about certain things that you have to do put in place within the first few days of your contract. I talk about it in that masterclass. Now, what I'm not going to do is come on here and basically do the masterclass all over again. We're not doing that. It is now on the website and you need to go. And I would encourage people, if you're a contractor already, or if you're new to contracting, go ahead and listen to that masterclass. Because I've been contracting, I think this is 7 years now. And I'm telling you this. I always get renewed. I'm always able to negotiate a higher rate. I'm always able to deliver. Now, and I say deliver, sometimes I can't deliver in full. But I'm always able to manage that contract so that they will ask me to come back because they know what it is with me. Do you understand? So everybody wants to make that extra money. But sometimes you have to also know the background and also understand how to strategically become a contractor as well. There's strategy involved. There is. Because what you don't want to do is go work somewhere and they sully your name. And then now you can't work for that agency anymore that placed you there. No. And also knowing how to, if you've been placed by an agency, you have to also know how to manage them, especially when things don't seem to go to plan. Or sometimes you go and work for someone as a contractor, and what they advertise through the agency and what they're telling you, two different things. And it happens more so when you're placed by an agency than when you're freelancing, when it's direct through limited company. It's different. I feel. Because when it's limited company, I feel like they move differently because you don't have the agency as the middleman, so you're able to dictate a lot more stuff. And I feel a lot more autonomy. You still have autonomy if you're placed for an agency, but it's just different, if that makes sense, because the agency are always more loyal to their relationship with the end client. Whereas I feel like when it's freelance, even if it's through an agency but freelance outside of IR35, I feel like they operate differently because they know they're paying you a lot more money, if that makes sense. But again, I talk about this on in the masterclass, roles inside, outside IR35, the attitudes and things like that, how to manage your colleagues. I really go into a lot of depth. I think the masterclass goes on for almost 2 hours, if not just above. So I really do give you the blueprint. This young lady hasn't come back to me, and if you're listening, please do, because we want to learn as well, and we want to understand the dynamics of what's also happening in some contracts, because that's how we learn, that's how we are better for ourselves as well, but also how we process this information to be aware if something similar was to happen to us. So yes, those are the dilemma episodes, and those are things I wanted to come on here and just talk about. But also as well, I think it's important to make clear that, you know, especially with contracting, it's not always clear cut. There is a lot of risk involved in it, but equally it's not any more risk than if you were a perm, but it's just understanding how to make that more money with less stress. Because some of you are contractors and still having the same stress you did when you were a perm, but that's because you're not understanding how to strategically approach contracting. And I think after my second contract, I knew that I had to wise up, because I worked for I was contracting with an organisation. They mistreated me so badly, and then they tried to frog march me out. And that's because the woman was trying to control me like she does her perm, and it doesn't work like that. But then I messed up, because within the first 2 days I should have set the tone by putting things in place to manage that contract. Since then, I've always done it, and this is the reason why I get extended. This is why they will ask. I've had contracts where I've delivered and I've gone. A year later, the agency called me because that particular end client has another project and they've asked for me specifically. So that's how I contract. So now that I'm on maternity, I'm now contacting people in my Rolodex, and I've got a couple of things cooking. Do you understand? But that's the long-term aspect of contracting, is being able to know how to manage these contracts and know what to do and be strategic and be all these things, but for the future when you need to tap into certain things. And now I'm sitting saying, if I wanted to be perm, I could if I wanted to, but actually I want to stay contracting because it serves its purpose in how I choose to live my life and my family's life, and actually, you know, the access to making more money and all. But contracting isn't for everyone, and I know that. But if you're going to do it, there is a way to do it well, is what I'm trying to say. I think I'm going to leave it there, you know, and I'm also going to say happy birthday to all my Librans, because we are a vibe. I celebrated my 39th birthday, and birthdays have a separate meaning when you become a mum. Honestly, it really is different, because it just felt like every other day, whereas normally it feels like my birthday. Even though I'm not a birthday person, but it just still feels like it. Whereas it didn't really feel like it, it just felt like another day, but another day that was just more special because it was my first time as a mum with my baby in my arms, celebrating my birthday. And then I just thought to myself, do you know what? I was just very reflective of the last 39 years and really holding myself accountable for some flawed decisions that I've made in my life, but some really good decisions I've made as well. And also as well, understanding this new chapter of motherhood and how it has changed how I see life, how I see myself, and how I manage my life. And, you know, I really am quite hard on myself. I am my hardest critic. And my therapist will tell you, you know, one time I was thinking of having my therapist on the podcast. It's still something I'm thinking about. But my therapist will tell you that I'm really, really hard on myself. And she says extremely, to the point where she feels that unless I am nicer to myself, I'm not going to allow myself to enjoy a lot of the things I've worked hard for. And that really resonated with me. Also as well, I will say that, you know, growing up, I was always really worried about how people saw me or what they thought of me. And I think it'll be disingenuous to say that I completely don't care what people think about me. But it's those people that know me the most that I care about their true opinions of me. But also, I didn't realise this, but I have cared about the opinions of people who access the platform, and the opinions of them, and how they use the opinions of me and how they've used what I've taught here. I think that there are a lot of podcasts, but you choose to listen to this one. And it has to be that you are enjoying it, you're learning from it, and you're benefiting. And that's all I want. I think that over the last few years, I've allowed people to tap into me and bypass the podcast. And I've allowed myself I'd say a few years ago, but I've allowed myself to be used. And it has really hurt me. And it really hurt me in a sense that I give very freely. So to be used and to somewhat be abused had been quite tough for me to process, because at the end of the day, I allowed it to happen. But I've also realised, especially through therapy, that I have to also protect my space and protect myself, as well as protecting my platform. And that means that not everybody can tap in. So in as much as I give freely, I have to also protect myself and protect this platform and what I give. So I'm going to say this. I'm genuine and I'm honest. I'm not perfect. I never hold myself out to be perfect. But I'm going to say this. If you attack my platform and attack what I have built, I will quite happily take you to court and sue you. I will do that. Because blood, sweat, tears has been what I have had to endure to be able to get my platform where it is. I fully fund everything. I don't have sponsors that sponsor me every day or every podcast. I think I've had one sponsor that I've accepted. I get sponsorship requests every single day. Every day. And I'm really protective over this platform. Hence why I'm very strategic and very critical before I accept a collaboration. I don't do this for the money. I do this because I feel like I have a lot to give. I do this because I believe in uplifting and sharing with my community. And I do this because I'm really passionate about the ethos of what Toya Talks is and represents. That's why I do this. There are so many podcasts out there, and there's so many people that go on Amazon, buy a microphone and chat shit. Pure shit. And I'm going to say this. You are what you consume. If you consume negativity, you will breed negativity. If you consume trash, don't expect to be reaping anything, because it's just trash that you will be walking in. I believe in escapism 100%, but I don't believe in projected negativity. I don't believe that. Sometimes I've come on this podcast and I've been very harsh about certain things, but I've also been very honest and very balanced and very logical. Because what I never want to do is for you to listen and don't learn. If you listen to my podcast, you don't learn not one thing, switch off, don't listen again. You have to learn something from what you're consuming from my platform. Even if it's something that you never knew, you have to learn something. Because I'm in the business of learning. I'm a student of life. I learn every day. And I'm willing to come here and share the blueprint. I make six figures, not because my father left me money in his will. No, I make six figures, not because I have 5 heads. I make six figures, not because I'm special. I make six figures because I'm strategic. I made the sacrifices I was required to make, and because I work bloody hard, and also because I'm strategic. I come on here and I share the blueprint. Yeah, I share, this is what success looks like to me. This is how I've attained it. This is how I've done this. This is how I do this. And sometimes, yeah, you know, I have had to take it there with certain employers. But I'm telling you right now, I can comfortably sit here and tell you that as a black woman hailing from Tottenham, not only that, but hailing from Tottenham, but not the Tottenham you guys know. I hailed from Tottenham pre-lottery fund. Yeah, it was hard. I am dyslexic. My learning disability has never been at the forefront. And unless I sit here and tell you some of my struggles, you wouldn't even know. You're not sitting there writing an email, reading it 10 times before you send it. Unless you have a learning disability whereby you lean into that. But I never, ever, ever, ever use my learning disability as a crux. Ever. I come here and say, this is who I am, this is what I've done, this is what I'm doing, be better than me. That's what I do. So just moving on from that, in terms of kind of the podcast and the platform, there is a lot of stuff that I have done behind the scenes, and I definitely am one of those people that believe that a lot of the charitable stuff I do, I don't necessarily feel like the need to kind of share it on social media or share it on my podcast platform. And I have been told by many friends that I need to start talking about some of the things I do, because I do a lot, and I think sometimes it's just in poor taste. I guess I just maybe need to find the balance. To that end, I also kind of want to say that I completely recognise the cost of living crisis, and I'm affected, we're all affected by the cost of living crisis. When you go to a store and buy food and you've only got a bag of food and suddenly it's £60 when you've hardly got any ingredients to make a meal, it's just a bit crazy. However, I also want to talk about workwear and work attire. And I think one of the benefits of kind of being remote is that you don't have to think about things like that. But I think when certain organisations started to change their position, I think a lot of people had a lot of anxiety, especially in our community, about turning up as ourselves, being safe, being a remote worker and being black whilst being remote. I completely understand and I completely agree. One of my friends reached out to me. She said, "Toy, you know what? The workwear hustle is very real, especially in a cost of living crisis, but also from a perception perspective, and how colleagues and people in senior management interact with you, sometimes depending on what you wear, and that judgment that comes from that based on what you wear." And she shared something with me, and I was like, it just gets from bad to worse. I definitely would say that I'm definitely one of these people that I will never wear a suit. You'll never see me in a suit. No. What the suit represents to me is very restrictive. However, I recognise that some people wear suits and have to because of the type of professions they're in, and that's fine. But I think the difficult part of workwear is understanding, number one, what to wear, and if you can afford what you want to wear. So my friend has offered to sponsor a podcast episode, which I think I'm going to be recording shortly, and I want to talk about the experiences of workwear. I want to share some of her experiences, because I know she doesn't want to come on the podcast, and anonymously, obviously, and share some of my own. You know, I've worked for some really big organisations, and one in particular that stands out is one where I was working, having been unemployed for a period of time, a long period of time. I think it was like almost 6 months I was unemployed for in my 20s, and then the crumbs of money that you get from the benefit system that only affords you a particular shirt, and then having to work for this organisation and know that you're being judged by your work attire, your shoes. I remember going in and working somewhere where I knew I had to replace my shoes because suddenly they started talking. You know what I mean when I say the shoes start talking, is when the sole separates from the rest of the shoe. And, you know, we can get into that. However, my friend would like to sponsor a podcast episode, and she would like to donate £250 to somebody who is struggling with workwear and struggling to afford workwear. And what I am going to say is that episode will come in November, and all I ask is that you share with me your workwear experiences in the workplace, and I would like them to be current. It should be somebody who is either struggling financially to buy work clothes, or someone who doesn't even know how to shop for work clothes. One thing I'm going to say, in a past life I was a stylist, period.com, and I'm the type of person that understands how to put together get basic stuff, put them together. And you need a couple of staples, and once you have that, you can kind of, for me, change it around. But I understand that some people lean towards certain styles and others don't. But the reason why I want to put everyone on notice of that episode is because I think it's going to be one of those episodes where all of us have to soul search about our experiences in the workplace in regards to how we show up and our appearance. And I talk about showing up as yourself, and I have a podcast episode, a previous one, about showing up as yourself. There is an element of that about workwear that you can't kind of run away from. People judge you by the collar on your shirt. They judge you by the type of shoes you wear, how long your shirt is. If your blazer is from a certain place, and depending on the organisation, everybody's wearing designer shoes, and in fact you don't want to spend your money doing that, and then having to maintain that is very labour intensive, and it's a financial commitment that some people don't and don't realise that they're committing themselves to when they try to keep up with the Joneses. So in November, that episode will come, and it'll be surrounding workwear. It would be a sponsored episode, and I would encourage people, if you want to, be considered for the £250, just anonymously share, and based on what I get back, I will choose somebody, or I will forward anonymously the emails to the person who is sponsoring, and they can pick somebody who we will donate the £250 to. I'm also going to match that £250, and I'm going to do another follow-up episode and basically match it for another individual. So 2 people will benefit from that. Hopefully that makes sense. If you want any clarification, email hello@toytalks.com, and that podcast episode will come out in November 2023. It'd be clearly marked in the show notes. And hopefully it really goes a long way to support and encourage somebody who is in the working world and struggling with work attire. So hopefully that helps 2 people out, and hopefully it's something I could be doing periodically. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for supporting. If you want to follow me, I am on TikTok, Toya Washington, all one word, on TikTok. If you want to follow me on my personal Instagram page, it's Toya_Washington. If you want to follow me on the Toya Talks podcast Instagram, it's Toya_Talks. If you have a dilemma, a work dilemma or a life dilemma that you think that we can address and I can advise you on, I will maintain your anonymity, which means I will not publish your name, your email address, or anything that can identify you. It will be done completely anonymous. Email me hello@toytalks.com. I will encourage you, if you're new to the platform, go and listen to some of the previous episodes and look at the show notes. More likely, I have covered the topic, especially earlier on in the podcast. I've covered quite a lot of topics here. And if you are a seasoned listener, don't be afraid to listen to previous episodes. Like, I've literally poured what I can into this podcast, and I continue to pour into it, but I need you to also choose to pour into yourself. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Toya Washington, and you have been listening to the Toya Talks podcast.